Well, hey there. We appreciate you joining us for this week's episode of the CBC Home Service Success Network. My name's Jerry Eisenhower, and with me today is Josh Kelly, Cheryl Eisenhower. And today, hey, we've come up with another good subject matter. I'm going to credit Cheryl. She's the one that came up with this one. And so hopefully she's got some real good participation into this. So, what's our topic today? Failure. The best education money can't buy. How about that? So I want to thank you for joining us once again. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay later on, we appreciate you investing your time with us. Our purpose every week is simple. We want to help you as a home service business owner, a manager, a leader build stronger companies while turning your business dreams into business realities. Today's topic, it's one that everybody has experienced, even the most successful people in the world. Yet very few people talk about it. What we're talking about is failure. Not how to avoid it, because it's going to happen. Not how to hide it. Not how to place the blame to somebody else for it. We're going to talk about why failure may actually be the best education money can't buy. You know, most of us grew up believing failure was something to avoid. When you went to school, if you didn't pass the test, you failed. In sports, failing meant you lost the game. In business, failure is unavoidable. The real question isn't, will I fail? The very real question is, what am I going to learn when I do? The big mistake leaders make believing that failure means they're not good enough. That's not true. It's simply not true. There's a tremendous difference between saying I failed and I'm a failure. One describes an event, the other describes your identity. Never allow a temporary event to become your permanent identity. Every successful entrepreneur, every great athlete, every inventor, every business leader, they have one thing in common. They've all failed. Sometimes spectacularly, sometimes only they know it. The difference is they refuse to allow the failure to define them as to be them. They allow failure to educate them. So Cheryl, why did you come up with this as a good topic for today? What was your thoughts?
Well, one thing that it's just I keep repeating when I interview people is one of the questions I asked is, you know, what have you felt? What's something you failed at? But what did you learn from it? And sometimes they're huge failures, and they, it devastated these people. A lot of them, it made them better people. And I'm just always calling it adult tuition because that's exactly what failure is. And I think we all go through it. I see it with your clients. I see it with mine. I'm sure Josh sees it with his clients. And it's not that you fail, it's what you do with it after you do it. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm doing the interview. That's my little expertise part of the company. And I'm always looking, did you learn something? Or did you just cost your life out for that period of time? And so the more I thought about it, it started out as just a little small sentence. And the more I thought about it, the farther and farther the reach got out. So that's kind of where I came from and came up with it, was because we all do it and we all pay for it.
Yeah. So Josh, what was your thoughts when I said to you that this was the topic we were going to be talking about this week? What was on your mind whenever you saw this?
Well, as long as you're learning from your mistakes, there's nothing wrong with that because I think you said it right. It's more expensive than college tuition, even at today's rate. I know it was at my rates. It's more expensive. If you start defining your mistakes in terms of dollar money, hey, I forgot to load a part onto a truck. That's $150. Well, that adds up real quick. I think what would you rather be judged by? Your, like you said, your temporary event or how you bounce back from it.
Very
Those
true.
are some of mine. And then actually, I had a question for Cheryl. What percentage of people say they never failed, or to some context of that?
I, maybe 5% say they never fail, but by the end of the conversation, they've said, I thought of something. Can I rephrase that question? Most of them learn something, but the problem is most of them didn't learn it to the effect they needed to do. But then some of them, their whole life changed because they failed. So it's all across the board, and it's every day. I mean, I ask everyone that question. I don't care what position they're hiring for.
Is it a disqualifier if they have a terrible response?
No, not unless it put them in prison.
Okay.
I mean, some people don't understand it. The way I view failure, the way you view failure, the way Jerry views it, we all view it in separate ways. Some people just view it as it's that minor little thing that messed up their day. That was a failure. For me, it's got to be catastrophic to be a failure. So everybody judges it in their own way. Part of it, it's a conversation starter. I need to know if they can carry on a conversation. Another thing, I want to know if they really understand that they have failed. Every person has failed. If you haven't really tried anything. I would come near hiring a chimney technician that didn't know, but for an ops manager, I need to hear an ops manager tell me something they failed at.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's real interesting. When I was going through my John Maxwell certification, one of the things that John Maxwell shared with the group, and it was a very large group, was that one of the questions he loved to ask his business managers when he met with them was, "What have you failed at lately?" And if they said they hadn't failed at anything, then John told them, then you're not trying anything new. Because part of life is you're going to fail at certain things. And in my career, since I've been in coaching, which is like going on 16 years now, I've worked with multitudes of business owners all across the United States. Some of them have built companies worth millions and millions of dollars. In fact, some of them are now selling out to private equity for really big returns. A lot of them are still struggling to make payroll, but everyone had something in common. They had paid their tuition, not their college tuition, their business tuition. Here's some of the things. They hired the wrong people. God, how common is that one? They bought equipment they wish they hadn't. There's you another one. They lost key employees.
Aaron, can you put her in the basement or something, please?
They had underpriced jobs. They invested in advertising that didn't work. Made purchases that they later regretted. They trusted people they shouldn't have trusted. God, how many of us have been through that one? And every one of these mistakes costs us money. Sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. But failure is just like attending college. Tuition can be expensive, sometimes very expensive. But if you truly learn the lesson, you never have to pay for that class again. You don't have to take a review. There's only one time that failure becomes truly expensive. It's when you refuse to learn from it. Because a mistake that teaches you something is education. A mistake you continue repeating is a pattern. And as John Maxwell said, what you have to do is you have to learn to fail forward. So Cheryl, back to you. Your thoughts at this point.
I've always seen people fail and they stop. Failure is not a time to stop. It's a time to look inward. It's a time to look at your business, your family life, your whatever's going on. I mean, failure always gives you information. If you've lost a customer or bad hire, like you said, sales, unsuccessful marketing, what's it trying to teach you? That's what I always ask people that I know. What is that failure trying? It's almost like you're set up to learn something. Learn it, and separate the failure from the person. I failed at this. It's different. I'm a failure. Those are two entirely different statements, and that's what people need to learn. It exposes your weaknesses. And when it does, a lot of people get embarrassed. And when they get embarrassed, they lock down. Well, that's failure too. So I've just always been, if you fail at something, if you do something wrong, we always made a joke about it. Just hold your hand up, take the blame, and go on, because that's not failing. But failing without learning is failure.
Gotcha. Josh, would you add anything to what she just said?
I always look at it as an opportunity to improve. I think that's a great way of putting it. Even when I designed the showroom, the way I learned to design the showroom was watching how customers interact with appliances. It's weird. Even if you watch, like, if you're seeing an older person kneel down on concrete, I consider that a failure, right? I'm fairly active, but I don't want to kneel down on concrete. So why are we making that even if we're just making it uncomfortable for somebody? Why are we doing that? Because we want our customers to have a good experience. If we're getting bad reviews, that's an opportunity to learn what went wrong. But if you're getting it, also step back a minute for a second, because as Mr. Whitehouse told me, if you get one complaint out of 1,000 about your procedures, you're doing things right. Those are some of the kind of feedback I have there. It's just, always be studying, watch how your customers interact. That's how I developed, my sales system, was being in the field and watching and trying to figure out how I could close more sales and expand on it. Because as you know, I'm not a salesman, and I'm also big and imposing. So you have most women are there, when we're there. So here's a big imposing guy standing over you, and I learned real quick, people just aren't going to be comfortable about that. And so in order to do my sales, I had to develop a system that, gave the customer space and breathing room and things like that.
Yep, that's great. So actually, failure can provide you a formula for growth, but you got to follow the process. So when you fail, here's the steps to take. Review what happened, what went wrong. Next step, learn from this. Next step, change the process. Change the process. Last step, try again. Every time something fails, ask yourself 5 questions. What happened? Why did it happen? Why was it within our control? What did we learn? And most importantly, what will we do different next time? The last question, this is where the growth happens. Because if nothing changes, then nothing was learned. And if you repeat the same process again, hey, there's something wrong. How many times do you hit yourself with the hammer before you learn to move your finger out of the way? There's one thing I've learned after coaching a lot of business owners, a lot of managers. Failure exposes weaknesses. Sometimes the weaknesses are in people. But often what we find is they're actually in the system. If the technician makes the same mistake over and over again, we want to blame the technician. Maybe the technician isn't the problem. Maybe that really isn't the problem. Maybe it's because his training was inadequate. Maybe the expectations weren't clear to him. Maybe accountability is missing. Maybe nobody ever inspected for what they expected. Failure is going to force leaders to look different. They're going to look deeper. Every recurring mistake should lead to another question. Here's the question. Is it a people problem or is it a system problem? And often we find out that it's a system problem. Great companies don't become great because they never have problems. They become great because they solve problems permanently. Cheryl, back to you. Your thoughts.
Well, I got to thinking about it as I was going along, and after the questions you asked, maybe this will fill some stuff in. I got comparing it to the disc. people. Each of us have different disc numbers or ranges of the way we do it. And each of us tend to look at failure differently. The D, which is your dominance, is they may move too quickly without ever analyzing what happened. It happened. I'm done with it. It's gone. And they minimize the problem, or they just avoid uncomfortable details. They don't like a detail, so they don't look at it. They kind of accept it. It goes inward, and it makes a mark on them a lot of times without trying to figure it out and work it out. They don't want to think about it anymore. Your S, they'll take it personally most of the time. And they become real reluctant to try again. They just kind of box themselves back in a shell. They won't try. Then you've got the C. They overanalyze the failure. They go over and over and over it because they're afraid of making another mistake. And it not only was it a failure, it becomes a time machine. And they're all different. D needs reflection. I needs accountability. S needs confidence, and C needs permission to move forward without having, every answer. So we have to look at it within our company. When there is a failure going on, look at the person to see how they're going to deal with it. Look at yourself and see how you deal with things. Because, we're all D's here, so I know how we all deal with it. But I see people every day that put it in their pocket and they never bring it out. And not only did you fail at something, you failed to change.
Yep. All good words. Josh, back to you. Your thoughts, my friend.
Well, I like that failed to change because I learned that, dealing with the younger generation, my communication style was not good, right? I found that they don't like to ask questions about, especially about meeting times and things like that. It was some weird stuff I learned over time. Because the guy would be like, well, you told me to, and I guess I was a little ambiguous, and he read it the way he wanted to read it. And I was like, crap. Okay, I guess I can see that. I wish you would have asked me for clarification, but I found that, a lot of people aren't going to ask for that. They're not going to ask that follow-up question. And I found that a lot, that I had to change my communication style to be sometimes more concise than what I thought. I thought I was being concise. As I have teenage daughters, and they speak a whole different language, but and again, learning from that is, it seems small, but just how are you interacting with that person, and how are they, what is their personality traits? I dialed it back the way I used to act a lot. I used to be very, very, now I just get even.
I hear you, man. So here's some real world examples. And you've probably been in this situation. You hired someone and they turned out to be the wrong fit. Instead of saying, we hired the wrong person, we got to ask ourselves, what failed in our hiring process? Did we ask the right questions? Did we ignore warning signs? Did we rush the decision? And from this, you improve your hiring process. Look at the same way on sales, customer complaints. Don't immediately blame the technician. Ask, was customer communication properly taught? Were the expectations clear? Did leadership inspect the performance? Did they inspect for what they expected? Sales decline. Companies blame the economy. And maybe the economy does play a role. But before blaming the external factors, you got to look internally. How many leads came in? What's your actual booking percentage? Of the leads you get, how many actually do you turn into customers? Of the proposals that you submit, what's your closing ratio? What's your average ticket? How effective is your follow-up? Failure always points somewhere. and your job is finding where it is. So, Cheryl, your turn again.
I'm going to take it back to the disc on the comments you made there. A lot of the ways, they deal with it's the way their disc leads them. That's why leadership, leadership can't be one person. Leadership has to have people that are with them to help get past the failure a lot of times. I mean, if a person fails a test, it's your fault, fix it. But when the business is faltering because, like you say, a bad hire, sales, whatever, sometimes it takes a team to come up with the actual reasons of what went on and what can we do to fix it. And the bad part, a lot of these problems cannot be fixed immediately because number one, the hiring pool is not that good right at the moment. It's summer, people don't want to work. So it's slowed down. So with that, there's some things that can't be immediately fixed. That's why you've got to have a second team because these times do happen. And if sometimes you can't see your own failure, you failed, you don't know what happened. So you need other people in your establishment that's going to back you and say, this didn't work out. We need to work on this. And I think that's where a lot of times we go down a rabbit hole of always, I've got to fix this. I've got to do it. Sometimes I's not enough people.
Gotcha. Josh, anything you want to add to that?
Sorry. Yeah, there's actually a lot. That's, Cheryl just mentioned people to push back. That's why I always like working with Brandy because we saw things through rose-colored glasses that I just didn't see. And so she was always able to give me great feedback on my probably angrily written SOPs and documents. As you know, I have hundreds, if not thousands of them. So it was always good to have, someone from a different, personality mindset to review those things. It makes a big difference in being able to detect your holes from where you're at. And also inspect for what you inspect. I know you say that a lot, Jerry. We recently did some audits using AI and found that reason some of our sales were down is because our CSRs weren't asking the right questions, and they were checking that they did, and in reality they did not. And we found that out very recently with a client that, hey, these things aren't really happening like they say they are.
Yeah.
So,
and you also got to look at the cost of waiting because a lot of times that's what we as human beings do. Things happen and we'll take care of it tomorrow, next week, next quarter, after the first of the year, whatever it is. But here's a lesson for you. The faster you learn and react and act, the cheaper the failure becomes. Don't wait 6 months hoping something improves. If your marketing isn't working, you got to measure it. If your pricing isn't working, you may have to adjust it. If your hiring process isn't working, improve it. Every month you delay, failure will become more expensive. The sooner you identify the lesson, the less tuition you pay. And you've also got to create a culture in your company that learns. Here's a very important leadership lesson. Employees should never fear admitting their mistakes. Now, I'm not talking about them being careless. I'm talking about truly honest mistakes. If your employees are afraid to tell you when something went wrong, small problems are going to escalate. They're going to become big problems. Great leaders create environments where employees feel comfortable saying, hey, boss, I made a mistake. Here's what happened. Here's what I learned. And here's what I think we should change. Folks, that's not weakness. That's maturity. That's communication. And that is true leadership on your part. Your turn again, Cheryl.
Yeah, I think a lot of times as business owners, people are too quick to jump on their employee. and start down a rabbit hole they don't need to be going down. They failed. They messed something up. It didn't work. We didn't kill our kids when they made a mistake. Why did we kill a relationship with an employee? Work with it. Ask them why. Because if you do it, especially in an open environment, and someone hears it, you won't hear when they do something wrong.
That's it. Josh, your
Everybody
turn,
makes
brother.
mistakes.
Yeah. So, Josh, your turn.
One of the recent conversation I had was with someone about employing was they said, well, we're not getting good candidates, and I'm like, well, what are you offering? What is your market paying? Because we're in a market where minimum wage is $17, $18 an hour, and turns out they're offering $1 above minimum wage. I'm like, well, you're not gonna, unfortunately, you're not gonna attract. You're not going to attract anybody with that shit instead of the honey. Who are you really gonna? Who do you want to come work for you? That's minimum wage worthy in this day and age. Because that's really what it is. And you got to start separating out. You got to start grading, your pay scale out to adjust for that. What was 20 years ago is not what it is today. And finding out that with these super high minimum wages, we're going to have to adjust our labor rates and the all our sales rates and all that stuff, raise our prices to go along with it. And a lot of people haven't been doing that, so they're kind of stuck. I just can't see a guy paying a guy that much. And reality, $17 today is what 7 was in 1980. So it's knowing that and going forward.
Yeah. And also keep this in mind. Success can be dangerous. Success can make us cocky. Success makes us where we're not looking at our mistakes. Here's an interesting thought. Sometimes your success is going to teach you less than the failures you have in life. When everything works, hey, we celebrate, then we move on. But when something fails, we're forced to slow down. And if we're doing it right, we got to analyze it, investigate, improve, and success feels good at that point. Failure makes us better. Failure versus quitting. There's one thing every business owner needs to understand. Failure doesn't destroy businesses. Quitting does. I've watched owners lose money, lose employees, lose building, lose trucks, lose customers, but they've rebuilt because they simply refuse to quit. Failure's temporary, but quitting is permanent. Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. That's what failure is. Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Cheryl, back to you.
I just can't agree more with that statement. If you quit, you quit. What have you learned? I mean, what can you lose? Get up, put your big girl panties on and go back to work. But the thing about it is, some people they cannot get past that hurdle of, I failed. I'm a disappointment. I've done something that I can't revive from. All of us have failed. I have. And you just get up and go again, because the thing about it, life's not fair all the time. And sometimes you just have to learn. It's like something reaches out and hits you up beside the head. Maybe you took a wrong path. Maybe it's time for the path you're on to end and a new success to come up. But always keep your eyes open and check what's going on. Pay attention and catch it. The bad problem, many people wait till it's too deep that they can't bring it out of the hole. So people just need to pay attention, and not just to themselves. Help an employee if they think they failed. Explain to them why they haven't failed. They just should have learned something.
Yeah. So, Josh, what about you? This will be your closing thoughts, brother. What else would you say?
Well, it does get better. It, it may suck today, may suck tomorrow, but if you keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it, it will get better.
Okay, good words. Cheryl,
Jerry.
anything you would say before I close this out?
Yeah, I was just asking if I could say one more thing. I'd like to challenge everyone out there that's listening to think about your most recent failure and don't ask, why did this happen to me? Ask, what did this come to teach me? And what am I going to change because of it?
Excellent, excellent final closing thought. So before we wrap it up, let me leave you with 5 lessons that failure teaches much better than success. First, you're going to learn humility, and that's something that a lot of people need to learn in this world. Failure reminds us we don't know everything. Second thing, preparation. Failure teaches us to prepare more effectively next time. Third, it teaches us resilience. Every setback builds your ability to recover. Fourth, innovation. Many of the greatest business ideas have come from trying to solve something that wasn't working. Finally, character. Success impresses people, but failure reveals their true character. Leadership isn't tested when everything's going well. Leadership is revealed when everything is falling apart. So as we close out today, I'd like to leave you with one challenge. Think about the biggest failure you've ever experienced and ask yourself, what did that experience teach me that success never could? If you're struggling today, don't panic, don't quit, don't lose hope. Become a student. Learn the lesson, study the lesson, analyze the situation, improve the process, then try it again. You know, one day you're going to look back and realize the event you thought that would destroy you, it actually prepared you for the greatest success you ever had. Always remember, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is often the tuition you pay on the journey to success. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining us today for another episode of CVC Home Service Network. If today's discussion encouraged you, hey, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with another business owner or leader, or leave us a comment. I'd love to hear your answers to the questions. What failure are you grateful for today that you hated when it happened? I think you'll find that many of life's greatest blessings actually they arrived disguised as disappointments. So until next time, hey, keep learning, keep growing, keep where you're at. I don't know where you went to, Cheryl. You blocked out of there for a minute.
I guess it failed, but I fixed it.
I guess it was a failure on our part. I don't know what happened. I just looked up and you weren't there. So anyway, we'll see you next time on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. As always, we appreciate you joining us and we appreciate you spending your time with us. We'll see you next week on the next episode. Have a fantastic week ahead. Whoops.